Good morning. On behalf of our sponsors, Call to Action, Catholics for Choice, and Corpus, we warmly welcome you. My name is Linda Pinto, and I am with Corpus, which originally stood for the Corps of Resigned Priests United for Service, priests who wish to remain in active institutional ministry, but also marry. Years later, we were renamed Corpus, the National Association for a Married Priesthood, priests willing to return to active institutional ministry as long as their wives and families were cherished and celebrated. And finally, Corpus, the National Association for an Inclusive Priesthood, priests who would never return to active institutional service unless the priesthood was open to all, men and women, married and single, gay and straight, a priesthood open to all who answer God's call to servant leadership. You see, it's true. Ecclesia semper reformantum est. Loosely translated, the church always changes. I have also served as a facilitator of CORE, Catholic Organizations for Renewal, a consortium of over 20 progressive Catholic organizations, many of whom are here at this forum co-sponsoring it. We trust you will enjoy this day-long event, which will hopefully enlighten and inspire you to continue to address what is Francis's glaring blind spot. You well know that Chicago enjoys a long history of women whose voices echo a call for dignity and equality. Jane Addams was a pioneer American settlement social worker, public philosopher, sociologist, author, and leader in the women's suffrage movement. In an era when presidents such as Theodore Roosevelt or Woodrow Wilson identified themselves as social activists, Addams outshined them as one of the most prominent reformers of the progressive era. Ida B. Wells was an African-American journalist and newspaper editor, a sociologist and early leader in the women's as well as the civil rights movement. Notably and disturbingly, she courageously documented lynching in the United States, showing that it was often used as a way to control or punish blacks who competed with whites. Frances Xavier Cabrini was an Italian nun who founded the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart, serving the immigrant Italian population in Chicago. Despite the lack of support by bishops and clergy alike, her groundbreaking outreach to the poor and marginalized earned her the privilege of being the first naturalized citizen in the United States to be canonized by the Roman Catholic Church. Feminist prophets include Tina Fey, Jennifer Hudson, and Chaka Khan. And I would be remiss not to invoke the names of the Holy Trinity of contemporary Chicago women saints, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, and Oprah Winfrey. So today we focus on Francis, whom I call my holy conundrum. His words indeed are impressive. Listen to what he says. The best wines come from every person who risks everything on love. Things have a price and can be for sale, but people have a dignity which is priceless. Let the church always be a place of mercy and hope, where everyone is welcomed, loved, and forgiven. It is vital that government leaders and financial leaders take heed and broaden their horizons, working to make sure that all citizens have dignified work, education, and health care. And finally, let us not be afraid to say it. We want change, real change, structural change. We want change in our lives, in our neighborhoods, in our everyday reality. We want a change which can affect the entire world, since global interdependence calls for global answers to local problems. The globalization of hope, a hope which springs up from peoples and takes root among the poor, must replace the globalization of exclusion and indifference. makes one wonder. Does Francis truly intend to inspire the church to become the open window of John the 23rd, letting in the fresh air of the Spirit? Or does he represent an institutional dose of air freshener, hoping we could smell the roses rather than the stench of a clerical system which at best isolates women and at worst renders them invisible? We need a tectonic shift. Angela Merkel is widely recognized as one of the most powerful women in the world. Yet my Catholic granddaughters continually encounter the barriers of women need not apply from all ministries, which include assisting the priest at the altar or being the priest at the altar. Malala Yousafzai conquered violence and poverty to champion the cause of women's equal access to education, while at the same time, female Catholic school teachers are dismissed without due process if found to have purchased contraceptives, attempted pregnancy through in vitro fertilization, or even voiced support for marriage equality or women's ordination. The Vatican has enthusiastically opened its doors to staunch evangelical spokespersons such as Rich Warren and Joel Osteen and David Green, co-owner of Hobby Lobby, but its doors are closed to contemporary prophets such as Joan Chittister, Elizabeth Johnson, and our own Janine Gramick. Taylor Swift can bring a huge corporation like Apple to its knees, but praying, paying, and obeying is where the Catholic hierarchy believes is the rightful place for women. So one wonders. On his most recent trip through South America, Francis astonished the world by apologizing for the sins against the indigenous peoples by the church. Women will not wait another 500 years to hear these words of enlightenment and apology. The time is now. It is said the best examples of social progress are always those who are themselves a living testament to the change they wish to make. That is you and I together. So let us begin. Our first panel is entitled Always at the Center, but Never at the Front, the Role of Women in the Church, and it will be moderated by Deb Rose Malovic, Executive Director of Future Church.